Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Driving the Wheels Off. Today, we're going to be replacing the master cylinder, the calipers, and rotors on the front of my 2001 F250. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the master cylinder into a vise. That way it's not wiggling around and we can work hands-free. Then we're going to remove these little protective covers. We're going to start out by using this white plug, and we're going to put that where the sensor is going to go. Give it a little twist to make sure it's snug and that it won't leak. Now you're going to find the right thread for each one of these ports in your bleeder kit. I'll put a link in the description below for this kit as well as everything else I'm using today. This one is a 9/16-18, and that's going to go into the far end of our master cylinder. You're going to thread that in hand tight, and then you're going to get an adjustable wrench and just put a little bit of pressure on it just so that it doesn't leak. So this next one is actually going to come out of the blue pack. Unfortunately, there's nothing marking these blue ones. So I can't tell you exactly what size this is, but we're going to go ahead and put this in the hole right below the tank. And again, we're going to get it finger tight, and then we're going to use our adjustable wrench to tighten it up a little bit. Now that we have our little connectors on, we're going to go ahead and remove the lid on our master cylinder. And we're going to take one of the clear tubes, plug it into the end, and then we're going to take one of these clips. We're going to put it right here on top, and we're going to put our hose down into the master cylinder and plug it into the clip. Now we're going to do the same thing, plug it into the end, and then we're going to put one of these clips on the top of the master cylinder. We're going to feed our hose down inside, and we're going to make sure that our hose is clipped into it. Now for the moment of truth, we'll see if we've got the right connectors in our master cylinder. I'm going to take some .3 and I'm going to start pouring that in there. As you're filling it up, make sure you're watching your connectors to make sure that they're not leaking. If they are, go ahead and plug them with your finger. Do the best that you can or put something underneath it to catch your brake fluid, and then either tape the connector or try a different size. Luckily for me, it looks like I have found the right size, so I'm going to continue filling up the master cylinder. Now, I don't want it completely full. I want to leave a little bit of space in there because the level of liquid is going to change as we push on this. Now you're going to find a tool that you can use to press in on the plunger of the master cylinder. You can use anything that will fit in that hole, like a screwdriver or something like that. And basically all we're going to do is we're going to start pressing in on the plunger and trying to get that liquid to come through the hose. And as you can see, the bubbles are going to start coming up, and that's what we're trying to get out of the system, are all the bubbles. So we're going to keep pressing on this and getting all that brake fluid in through the system. Push and push and push. You're going to see lots of bubbles in the hose. You're going to see lots of bubbles in the tank. Now, if you notice that you're getting more bubbles in your hose, no matter how many times you press, make sure that the hose is down inside the cylinder far enough. After about 10 compressions, you should not see any more bubbles in your hose. Once you don't see any more bubbles, you've got this thing ready to be installed on your truck. So let's go ahead and get prepped on the truck, get the old one out so that we can get this one put in. Do not take any hoses or anything off of the new master cylinder until we get it installed. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave mine right here in the vise. Now, as you can see, this area is a little bit compact. We've got a few things we need to detach from here. One of which is that bolt right there in the back. And then on the other side in the same place, we have these two hoses on the side that we need to remove, as well as this sensor on the bottom. And then we're also going to unhook that sensor right there in the middle. So there's a little clip on the bottom. You have to push it in the middle, and then you can pull this out. So I'm going to remove the sensor at the bottom. Now we're going to take another one of the white plugs out of our kit, and we're going to plug that hole. Now we're going to take a 9/16 deep well socket, and we're going to start removing the nuts off of the master cylinder. Be careful not to damage the metal hoses going into the side of the master cylinder as you're removing these nuts. These nuts? Now let's carefully remove the metal tubes from the side of the master cylinder. Unfortunately, one of my metal hoses has rusted out and broken, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the master cylinder and I'll have to go ahead and get one of those hoses ordered. All right, so it has been 4 days since I started this project, and as you saw at the end of the last part, one of the nipples broke off, and this truck is from up north, so there was some rust issues, obviously everywhere inside the truck. So what I did was I had somebody remake the pipes, and then we put the old nipples on here. They flared the pipe for me. They bent it to where it was supposed to be. Now I'm going to put it back in. I'm going to show you a couple of these spots that I'm dealing with, and then we're going to get back into replacing the master cylinder. So this is one of the areas here. This is the ABS block, and as you can see, one of the lines goes in right here on the right hand side and the other one goes in here on the left hand side, and I didn't have a huge problem getting those out of there, except for the fact that there's not a lot of room here. I think I went down and underneath here with my arm, and I brought the wrench over and did it very, very slowly, turning it about 1/5 of the way each time. It took quite a while to get it off of there. I'm sure it's going to take quite a while to get it back on. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done so that we can get back to the master cylinder. And here's what it looks like with the lines reinstalled. Now we have our new master cylinder in hand, and now let's go ahead and put our mounting nuts back on. Now I'm going to add a little more .3, so if we lose some when we take these hoses off, we don't lose too much and start getting some air bubbles in here again. Now I'm going to start with the line in the back just because I want to work from the back forward. If there's a sequence to this that I don't know, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if there's a way to do this a cleaner way, please let me know as well. Now let's get our front line installed. To tighten it up, I'm going to use this crow's foot, and it's a 14 millimeter. After those two lines are tight, let's go ahead and put our sensor back on. Now that we have that sensor back on, let's go ahead and reattach the other sensor. Now we're going to put the lid back on because we're still maxed out on the line. Before we get started with the calipers and rotors, let's go ahead and put the chocks under the wheels for safety. Now let's go ahead and break these lug nuts free before we jack up the truck. Now let's go ahead and jack up the driver's side and put in our jack stand for safety. We have the driver's side wheel up off the ground. Let's get them lug nuts off. Now that we have the lug nuts off, let's go ahead and get this front wheel off so we can see what we're working with. Now let's get this caliper off of here. I'm going to start by removing the brake line off of the caliper, and I'm going to zip tie it up out of the way so it doesn't get damaged while I'm removing the rest of the parts. Next, I'm going to remove the center part of the caliper, and I'm going to be using an 11/16 socket to remove it. To get the pressure off of the brake pads, just use a small pry bar and push outwards on both sides. Then pull the center of the caliper straight out. Now that we have the center of the caliper removed, let's remove the outside of the caliper. I started by trying to remove these bolts with a 21 millimeter wrench and failed. So I brought out the breaker bar and ended up using a cheater too before they finally broke free. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that took a lot longer to break loose than I thought it was gonna take. Now let's get this nasty rotor off of here. And as you can see, there's a sticker right here on the front that tells you exactly which side to put this on. So this one is the front driver's side. Now let's get the outside of the new caliper installed. Now with the kit that I got, I'm gonna have to reuse my 21 millimeter bolts. If you're interested in the kit that I bought, I will have a link in the description below. Now let's put our new brackets in, and we're gonna do the same thing in the top of both sides and the bottom of the back. Now let's put the new brake pads in and put the other one on the back side. Now put the pins in the ends of the brake pads. Now let's put the center of the caliper back on. This caliper set did come with new 17 millimeter bolts, so let's get those installed. Now let's get the brake line reinstalled. Now we have everything back to where it's supposed to be. Let's go ahead and get the passenger wheel off and get started over there. We're gonna go ahead and leave the driver's side wheel off for now so that we can come back and bleed the brakes after we get done with the passenger side. All right, so that last caliper took way too long to break loose those 21 millimeter bolts. So this time I'm gonna leave that brake line connected to the middle part of the caliper until I get everything replaced. Then I'll take it off and I'll immediately put it onto our new caliper. Now let's get these old brake pads off of here. Take the old brackets off. Now let's go ahead and hit this bolt and this bolt with some WD-40 before we start trying to break them loose. This side wasn't nearly as hard to break free. You just got to make sure you have the right tools. Now, don't forget we're going to hang on to these 21 millimeter bolts because we're going to reuse those on our new calipers. And after giving this rotor a couple love taps, it came right off. Now we're going to put our new rotor on. Now let's get the outside part of the caliper installed. Now let's go ahead and get these little brackets installed. And if you're wondering why I decided on this particular kit, it's because I went on a forum online of people that drive these big trucks like F250s, F350s, Chevy 3500s, Chevy 2500s, and I asked what is the best brake to have for these big trucks, especially when I'm pulling a trailer most of the time, because I have a tool trailer and I have a 22-foot travel trailer that my wife and I use quite frequently, and all of them said the same thing. So if you're wanting to get this particular kit, I will have it in the description below, and then you can try it out for yourself. Now let's get the center of our caliper put on, and let's get our new bolts in there. Now that we have everything back together, let's go ahead and take the brake line off of the old caliper and put it on the new caliper. Now, I didn't show you this in the other one, but there is this little copper washer that needs to go right in there. That time we had minimal loss of .3, which is definitely what we were looking for. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please hit that like and subscribe, as it really helps out our channel. Now, let me go get my assistant, aka my beautiful wife. Before we start bleeding the lines, we want to double check and make sure that our reservoir is completely full. Okay, pump them. Hold. Pump them. Hold. And after you get your brakes bled, it's time to throw the wheels back on there and give it a test drive. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.